heart of Africa's richest square mile, Sandton, was transformed into a beehive of activity when leading local fashion designers took to the streets to embark on a protest action to raise awareness about the impact of illicit trading on the local fashion scene. This is a very, very important discussion that we'll be having. And this March, a key feature of the Buy Local Summit and Expo 2025 was a rallying call for consumers, retailers and policymakers alike to prioritise locally made goods and protect jobs within the sector. And the protest action was led by award-winning fashion designer David Tlale, Mzukisi Mbane, Palesa Mokubung, Otsile Sefolo, Vanya Mangaliso, just to mention a few. Now, this morning, we're in conversation with award-winning fashion designer David Tlale and the Chief Marketing Officer at Proudly South African, MaKhumalo Ngidi, on the benefits of buying local products. A very good morning to you two. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live. And Happy, I'm going to start with you. Without a doubt, of course, the march had people, talking about how the fashion industry in South Africa is impacted on counterfeit trading. So what was discussed at the summit and what's the way forward from this?
Many things discussed at the summit, but in the context of the clothing, textile, footwear, leather sector, the discussion was really around the fact that the notion that we get from many South Africans, where some believe that, local products are not good enough. They are inferior, but they think that their hard-earned rand and hard-earned money can be spent on products that have been brought into South Africa. But those of our local designers, renowned local designers, you've mentioned, and up-and-coming designers, and the industry and the value chain as a whole is not good enough. And this discussion was really about that. The discussion started, in the conference area, and then we took it to the streets, like you saw, and for the first time, it felt like the voices of the industry collectively, the value chain, us as Proudly South African, supported by Brand South Africa and Tourism South Africa, we went out there and we said, we are here and prepared to do something about it. We're not comfortable anymore to sit back and point fingers at somebody. We are prepared to go out there and let our voices be heard and be seen to save jobs. It is our responsibility to save jobs because counterfeits and illicit trading is stealing jobs away from South Africans. And that's, by and large, in the main, what the discussion was about.
And it appears that the voice of the industry is not, amplified hard enough. And David, you mentioned that the textile and fashion industry is dying slowly and how textile factories are closed. So maybe if you could share more on the impact of this on fashion entrepreneurs.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us on this program this morning. I think over the years we have seen the clothing and textile industry, literally, it was very strong. It was powerful. We were manufacturing and we were exporting a lot of product from South Africa to neighboring countries and also to the US and also into Europe. And over time, because of the influx of cheap fabrications and cheap products that are coming into the country, we've seen fabric stores, fabric mills being shut down because of these cheap, I would say, materials that are coming into the country. So our very important aspect is that let us get back to the basics. What made the clothing and textile industry work in the past? We had mills, we had manufacturers of cotton, of wool, on mohair, you name it. Yeah. So we need to get back to those basics to say, let's reopen those factories and let's make sure that we promote a totally, I'll say, produced in South Africa product, not only as a finished product, but from raw materials and leading it into a product that is ready for retail.
The call against counterfeit goods and trading is, it comes in multiple forms. I mean, you guys handed over 2 memorandums to Michael Lawrence, the president of the National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications, and one was to reinforce the call for stronger measures to combat counterfeit goods and unfair competition in the fashion industry. Do elaborate more on this. I mean, what is it that you expect from the government as part of one of those voices, to amplify this call against counterfeit trading?
I think the most important thing for us is to make sure that the government helps us and works with us in building a very strong, I would say, clothing and textile industry. Counterfeits have always been there. Counterfeits will always be there. There's nothing we can do about it. But there should be ways of curbing them. There should be ways of minimizing them, because at the end of it all, it is very important that we take care of the end user. But this does not only happen on us as industry or as designers or manufacturers. It's very important that we educate the consumer at large, because if the consumer does not understand the impact of manufacturing locally, wearing locally, and eating locally, people will just like keep on doing whatever they're doing. So we have to conscientize the end user. We have to conscientize the government. We have to conscientize especially the industry at large, that we need to come together, because whether we want to or not, a good thing will always be copied. I mean, we look at international brands, how they're being copied and everything else, but there's a very important aspect of education to the end user that needs to come to play.
All right, David, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I do understand that you've got another commitment, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us in this all-important conversation. Now, MaKhumalo, I want us to pick up on what David said in terms of educating the consumers, because the consumer is the biggest stakeholder in this value chain. Educate them on the impact of, counterfeit goods and fake clothing, and how is Proudly South Africa helping the designers, and perhaps what are some of the solutions being implemented to help improve the prospects of local entrepreneurs and turbocharging economic growth?
And this is exactly where Proudly South African comes in. Our job as a campaign is to educate consumers about the importance of making when they make a purchasing decision, do that in favor of local product, and understand that the spin-off from there is essentially to create jobs in South Africa and to sustain the jobs that we currently have. And it simply means, if you prefer to always make a purchasing decision in favor of what Shein and Temu brings into the country, you're essentially creating a job in that country where that product is coming from. We understand that South Africa is not operating in isolation. There's import and export agreements in place that we have to, adhere to as a country. However, the Buy Local movement is a tried and tested method the world over. Many countries in the world have got their own Buy Local first before they trade with other countries. And so that's why education is important to the end user.
Absolutely.
Proudly South Africa simply does not have enough resources to go out there where every day on television when you get home, you see Buy Local. On the radio as you're driving to work, you hear Buy Local. On billboards, at airports, everywhere you see Buy Local. And I think our reality is that we plead with those that are in places where spaces that they can make a difference and can rethink the importance of Proudly South African as government, as policymakers, to invest more in this campaign, because it is important. It's an important campaign that seeks to educate South Africans not only about the clothing, textile, footwear, leather sector, about all sectors that are impacted by counterfeit goods.
All right. MaKhumalo, great chatting to you. This is certainly an ongoing and an everyday conversation. And thank you so much for sharing your voice, and joining us in this discussion. We just spoke to award-winning fashion designer David Tlale and Chief Marketing Officer at Proudly South African MaKhumalo Ngidi on the benefits of buying local products. And this is after designers lamented the adverse impact of illicit trade on the local fashion industry.